Hey there folks, Scottsdale Travel Chick Sidekick here with our guide on how to tour the National Mall sites in Washington, D.C. D.C. has a ton of things to see and do, but the National Mall area is the primary tourist attraction and is chock full of national museums, world-famous monuments, the U.S. Capitol, the White House, and more. We'll show you how to efficiently hit all the top sites during this video. So stick around, we just might surprise you with a couple of secrets. First off, how best to do it? Well, I'm going to jump straight to the point. The absolute best way to do this tour is by bicycle. Renting a car is pretty much useless as there is limited parking in the area, and much of the 7 to 9 miles you'll cover during this tour are only accessible by walking or riding a bike. Walking will take you forever and you'll be exhausted. So visiting by bike is the best way to take it all in the least amount of stress and effort. Plus you'll get a little bit of exercise. All right, babe. You got a bike there. Where are we going? What are we doing?
So we're in DC and we're gonna go down to the mall and the Capitol and the Lincoln Memorial, maybe see a bunch of monuments.
Would you like to go to the White House?
Yes,
okay.
Let's go check it out.
Renting a bike is the easy part. Many hotels around downtown have their own bikes, and there are also some rental options like Bike and Roll. But probably the easiest option is to use the Capitol bike share system, which has kiosks all over town and an app which makes it all easy. The tour we'll show you here should take about 4 to 5 hours, including brief stops at all the sites. If you want to hit some of the museums or something else in more detail, then do this trip first and use it to decide which places you want to come back to and spend more time at. Assuming you rent a bike from the Capitol Bike Share for about 4 hours, the cost will be about $10 to $15 for a normal bike or $15 to $20 for an e-bike. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about what you'll see on this tour. There are dozens and dozens of nationally significant sites to see. So many that I'm going to group them into 5 sections moving from east to west, which is also how we'll recommend you take this tour. Let's start with the East of Mall area. In this East of Mall area, you'll hit the Supreme Court, the Library of Congress, the U.S. Capitol, the Ulysses S. Grant Memorial and the Capitol Reflecting Pool, and the U.S. Botanical Gardens. You can see all these sites by simply riding down the road between the Capitol and the Supreme Court on the east side, and then riding through the Capitol grounds to the other side of the Capitol facing the mall. So we're going by the front of the Capitol. As you can see, it's all fenced off, which is shameful from the riots. Last time we were here in November, we rode right up to the steps. And then on this side is one building of the Library of Congress. And then we're going to ride down towards the Supreme Court. But the whole Capitol is still fenced off. Right up this little path in November, straight up the steps, got our pictures taken. The Supreme Court is directly behind the Capitol to the east. It's a beautiful building, but relatively small compared to many others around it. Fun fact, did you know the Supreme Court was originally housed in the Capitol building and didn't receive its own dedicated building until 1935? Right next door to the Supreme Court is the main building of the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress is the world's largest library with over 164 million items, and it's actually housed across multiple buildings in this area. In addition to 38 million books and other printed materials, the Library of Congress contains millions of photographs, recordings, and films. All of these things are stored over more than 838 miles of bookshelves. Now let's talk about the Capitol. First off, when we visited back in November, we were able to ride our bikes right up to the steps of the Capitol and take all the pictures we wanted. Now, the entire Capitol complex is fenced off until further notice due to the Capitol riots in January. It's a real shame. Anyway, it's an incredible building to see up close, and the Capitol complex actually contains other large buildings to either side, which is where the work of Congress really gets done. This is the Rayburn House Office building. So on one side are buildings for the House of Representatives. On the other side are buildings related to the Senate. Just a couple of fun facts in the U.S. Capitol. Did you know that Thomas Jefferson held a competition for the design, and the prize was only $500? And did you also know that the Capitol has its own private subway system just for congressmen and their staff? Just to the west of the Capitol, you'll come to the Ulysses S. Grant Memorial and the Capitol Reflecting Pool. They're worth a quick stop. Okay, so now we're on the south side. This is the Capitol Reflecting Pool, Ulysses Monument, Peace Monument. There's 2 or 3 monuments, one behind us, one right here on the reflecting pool, and then this other one here, Peace Monument. So we can get a couple of pictures. And then here's the Capitol, still fenced in. Fun fact, this reflection pool is not the famous one, but it's actually quite large. It's 6 acres, and it does reflect the Capitol in full. Here's our best attempt at night. A little windy, but not too shabby, huh? Finally, just a quick touch on the U.S. Botanical Gardens, which are just across the street. It's a lesser-known site on the mall area, but a great place to take a break from the crowds and explore their unique plants and decorations. Fun fact, did you know that some of the plants here come from border officials who confiscate unknown plants being smuggled into the country? Okay, and now a little pro tip here. If you get going early enough, why don't you try a breakfast at Pete's Diner, just a block southeast of the Capitol. It's a great little locals place that very few tourists know about. I think it's funny that it's called Pete's, but it's run by a local Korean family who add some unique Asian favorites to your normal diner-style menu. Well, that was a long section, so I'm going to speed this section up. Moving further west, you'll come to the National Mall itself. This is basically a 1.5-mile rectangular park surrounded by multiple museums, most of them Smithsonian museums, which are free to visit. Starting from the east side near the Capitol, moving west, you'll come to the National Museum of American Indian, the National Art Gallery, the National Air and Space Museum, the Hirshhorn Museum, the National Museum of Natural History, the National Museum of American History, the National Museum of African History and Culture, and a couple more. I'm not going to give you fun facts on each of these museums, but let me just give you one really interesting fact. The Smithsonian was established by a wealthy British scientist named James Smithson. But it wasn't so straightforward. At the time of his death, he gave his assets to his nephew, but his will specified that they be turned over to the U.S. government in the event his nephew died without an heir. Sure enough, his nephew died 6 years later, and President James Polk signed the act approving the Smithsonian Institution into law in 1846. Curiously, Smithson never even visited America, and we aren't really sure why he left his wealth and legacy to a foreign nation. Okay, next you'll come to the Mid-Mall area in the White House. But before we get going here, just a quick shout out that if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to our weekly updates of other informative travel videos just like this one. In the Mid-Mall White House area, you'll hit the Washington Monument, the Ellipse Park, the White House, the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and the U.S. Bureau of Engraving. The Washington Monument is one of the biggies of the National Mall. Everyone wants to see it, but there isn't really much to see, just a big, tall obelisk set on a knoll. It is big though. In fact, did you know that the Washington Monument was the world's tallest building up until 1889 when the Eiffel Tower replaced it? Another fun fact is that there are 50 flags flown around the base of the building at all times, 24 hours a day. Oh, and it's lit up quite nicely at night, too. Alright, here we are doing the loop around the monument. It is now open, so you can see some people up there. And you can ride around it. And then over to our right behind those trees is the actual White House. That's where we're going next, but I'm just going to check out the monument for a while. Next up, Ellipse Park, which is basically a field between the Washington Monument and the White House. But did you know back in the 1860s this area was the playing field for the DC baseball team, the Washington Senators, and was the site of the very first game between the Senators and the Washington Nationals. Also little known is that in the park is a small stone marker that designates the very center of the District of Columbia. Rumors also say there's a secret chamber buried below this site created by the Freemasons and related to the Knights Templar. Dan Brown, anyone? Getting back to reality, next up is the White House. Of course, another biggie. It's not really on the mall, but slightly to the north. And did you know that the White House actually faces away from the National Mall? What you see when you approach it from the Washington Monument is the back of the house. The front of the White House actually faces north to Lafayette Square. Now, moving back across the mall to the other side of the Washington Monument are two other attractions worth considering: the U.S. Holocaust Museum and the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. The Holocaust Museum in D.C. is especially moving and worth a visit. It's said to be the third most popular site in D.C. behind the White House and the Vietnam War Memorial. The U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing is right next door, and it offers free daily tours. Ever seen how your money is made? Tickets are distributed free on a first-come, first-served basis from 8 a.m. Check their website for more details. Finally, we now get to the west side of the National Mall. This is where you'll visit the World War II Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial and its reflecting pool, the Vietnam Memorial, and the Korean War Memorial. The World War II Memorial will be the first site you come to in this area, and is one of the newest memorials in DC, being dedicated only in 2004. To me, it's also one of the most beautiful and impressive, with views both east and west along the mall. We're coming up to the World War II, and we're going to go around the front and show you what that looks like. So this is in the middle of the west side. So down there is the Washington Monument. And this is the World War II Memorial. And on the other side of this reflecting pool is the Lincoln Memorial. We're gonna go there next. At the edge of the World War II Memorial, all you have to do is turn around and you'll have the best view of the Lincoln Memorial across the full expanse of the reflecting pool. Did you know that the reflecting pool is more than 2,000 feet long, but only 18 inches deep? It's great for daytime pictures, but even better at night. Again, this is the Washington Monument, Capitol behind that. A bunch of people selling Gatorades and waters. And we're going to go up here to the Lincoln Memorial. This happens to be one of your favorites?
Yes, Lincoln is sitting right inside, so let's go check him out.
Fun fact, the idea for this memorial was begun immediately after Lincoln's assassination, but it took 50 years for it to be built in what was once a swampy, crime-ridden area where dead bodies used to turn up in the late 1800s. So we got the Lincoln Memorial. Over there is the Vietnam. And as we rotate going east, this is another view of the World War II Memorial. The Vietnam Memorial is right next door. This area has a couple of cool bronze statues to see, but the primary site is the memorial wall itself, with the names of all those killed during the war. It was built entirely by private donations without government funding, and a college student's design beat out the design submissions from a multitude of professional architects. Take that, fancy pants, huh? This is actually the Vietnam Memorial. It's just a wall, mainly sunken down, and then it basically has all the names of all the people killed in the war. All the way down here. On the opposite side of the reflecting pool from the Vietnam Memorial is the Korean War Memorial. Some would say it's a little less impressive, but it's still worth your time for a stop. Within the walled triangle area are 19 stainless steel statues depicting soldiers on patrol. On the main wall are also more than 2,500 sandblasted photographic images. These images were taken directly from photographs of soldiers who fought in the Korean War. At this point, you are technically finished with the sites along the National Mall, but we highly recommend you continue along to the Tidal Basin and West Potomac Park area to see just a few more impressive memorials. Sites you'll see in this area are the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial, and in season, the cherry tree blossoms along the Tidal Basin. The Martin Luther King Memorial will be the first you come to along West Potomac Park. This design of the memorial is a result of a very competitive bidding process. In fact, more than 900 applicants from 52 countries made submissions. The memorial was dedicated in 2011. Interesting fact, the address for this memorial is 1964 Independence Ave, which is a reference to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Next up, you'll come to the Fdr Memorial. It's a large, spread out memorial which blends in with its surroundings, so you don't really see it from the Basin area. It consists of 4 large outdoor areas that represent each of FDR's 4 presidential terms. The 4 areas contain various fountains, sculptures, monuments, and famous quotes engraved in granite related to his presidency. There's a lot more of FDR's praises and more fountains. He created the New Deal, the Conservation Corps. As you continue to the south end of the West Potomac Park, you'll come to the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. This memorial is simply a circular colonnade based on Greek architecture which is open to the elements, but clearly visible all around the Basin area. Inside there's a 19-foot tall, 10,000-pound bronze statue of Jefferson in excerpts from the Declaration of Independence. Fun fact, this bronze statue was added 4 years after the memorial's dedication, since it was dedicated during World War II and metal rationing was in place. Finally, beyond these great monuments, the Tidal Basin area is one of the best places to simply go for a walk. In season, which is usually between late March and mid-April, you can also feast your eyes on the beautiful cherry blossoms in bloom all around the basin. The cherry trees were a gift from Japan back in 1912, when they sent America over 3,000 young cherry saplings. Today, there are approximately 3,750 cherry trees along the Tidal Basin, with many different species, but roughly 2,800 are still from the offspring of the original Japanese saplings. Well, there you have it, our outline of a grand tour of Washington, D.C.'s National Mall. As you can see, there are tons of things you can see, do, and experience during this tour, and it will no doubt take you a full day. However, even with all the sites we've covered here, we've only just touched the surface. Hopefully, you'll give it a try and find your own favorites along the way. Until next time, see you later.